The Public Utilities Regulatory Commission's Volta Regional Office has noted that in the first half of the year, it received 511 consumer complaints concerning utility suppliers in the Volta and OT regions. In all, 466 of these complaints were against the Ghana Water Company, while 45 were against the Electricity Company of Ghana. However, 428 of the reported cases, or 83.76%, were resolved. Mr. Philip Agbesudo, the Volta and OT Regional Manager for the PURC, in a media engagement said the quality of utility service delivery was the biggest problem consumers have in the two areas. He said the ECG's complaints included many faults, such as frequent power outages, inaccurate invoicing, and sluggish customer support. The PURC, he explained, seeks to close the gap between consumers and service providers and to advance efficiency and transparency in the utility industry by giving customers a forum to air their grievances. International oil company TotalEnergies has begun drilling oil wells in Uganda as part of the Mammoth East African crude oil pipeline project that has been subject to protest by environmental and human rights groups. The French oil giant announced on Wednesday that drilling had started at its Tilenga project on the northern end of Lake Albert in Uganda this month, with production set to begin in 2025. The Petroleum Authority of Uganda announced on 28 June that the drilling of development wells had begun. It said in a statement to the AFP news agency that around 400 wells are expected to be drilled to produce approximately 190,000 barrels of oil per day at peak when production begins in 2025. The Climate Change Committee has called the UK government's efforts to increase climate action worryingly slow. It was significantly less optimistic than a year ago that the UK would meet its carbon-cutting ambitions. At the COP26 UN Climate Conference in Glasgow in 2021, then Prime Minister Boris Johnson pledged to cut emissions by 68% by the end of the decade compared to 1990 levels. The committee cited a lack of urgency across government as well as worrying hesitancy on the part of ministers to take the lead on climate change. The CCC study warned that continued delays in policy development and implementation made meeting the targets increasingly difficult. Meanwhile, Committee Chairman Lord Deben, a former Conservative Environment Minister, was particularly critical of the government's policy on new coal and oil projects. He said the decision to approve the UK's first new deep coal mine in 30 years in Cumbria last December was unnecessary. Visit EnergyGhanaMagazine.com for more on these stories. Energy Brief is proudly brought to you by Airport View Hotel.
Energy Ghana TV. Local in focus, global in perspective.